diversity in Starbucks reflects in part, obviously, the growing diversity of the U.S. Latinos make up 13% of the country's population, slightly less than the number of African Americans. Almost 1 in 20 Americans, meanwhile, comes from Asia. Growing numbers of immigrants, meanwhile, from Africa and India, Egypt and Israel, and everywhere in between arrive in the U.S. every year. But Starbucks' diversity simply isn't a reflection of the changing makeup of the U.S. Growing competition has forced business people to crunch numbers in new ways. Gay, lesbian, and transgendered people spend more than $500 billion a year. African American and Latino consumption adds up to 2, maybe 3 times that number. These are big pieces of the pie. Pointing to the U.S.'s changing demographics, Mark Gobet, that brander, writes, quote, "People want to deal with corporations that are responsive to their unique needs," end quote. Harvard Business School professor David A. Thompson studied IBM and noted how the corporate powerhouse, quote, "expanded minority markets dramatically by promoting diversity in its own workforce," end quote. Following the advice of Thomas and Gobet and other experts, Starbucks has aggressively gone after non-white, non-heterosexual markets. Early in its corporate life, Starbucks formulated a mission statement and vowed to do everything it could, quote, "to establish Starbucks as the premier purveyor of the finest coffee in the world while maintaining uncompromising principles as we grow," end quote. To help employees measure the appropriateness of our decisions, the company laid out 6 guiding principles. Number 2, instruct Starbucks employees to, quote, "embrace diversity as an essential component in the way we do business," end quote. Over time, this has remained central to the company's self-definition and marketing pitch. A company public relations representative said in 2004, quote, "You will see diversity by age, sex, race, sexual orientation, family status throughout the organization. It holds an equal place in our guiding principles, just like respect and dignity, just like customer satisfaction." At Starbucks, this isn't just talk. Like IBM, the company went after minority business through concrete, tangible acts. Supporting its commitments, it laid out a global diversity strategy, focusing on employment, suppliers, and customers. Each year, for instance, the company sends representatives to look for new talent at Howard and Spelman and other historically black colleges and universities. The efforts have paid off. In 2005, minorities and women made up 60% of Starbucks' workforce, and this is pretty, obviously it reflects kind of frontline customers, but even the executives are pretty well, there's a fair amount of diversity. Starbucks supplier program represents another of the company's diversity efforts. Under the plan, the firm reaches out to minority women-owned businesses for cups, cleaning, and carpets. And each year between 2000 and 2005, Starbucks doubled its spending with these groups. And then there's Magic Johnson. Beginning in 1998, Starbucks entered into a 50-50 partnership deal with the Magic Johnson Development Corporation to establish the carefully named Urban Coffee Opportunities. This deal with Magic brought Starbucks coffee houses, in the company's word, to, quote, "ethnically diverse urban and suburban neighborhoods," end quote. Between 2008 and 2007, Starbucks stores would open in Harlem, South Central Los Angeles, and the edge of the neighborhood where Martin Luther King grew up in Atlanta. Diversity figures into Starbucks advertising as well. Copying from the Benetton posters, Starbucks brochures feature a multicultural rainbow of people. Black and Asian baristas standing next to white and Latino customers. Posters show white men serving black women, or picture cafes surrounded by J.Crew model handsome people of all shades and colors. During the 1990s, when Starbucks was getting set to launch a book series to raise money to support child literacy programs, a former company marketer told me he was instructed by higher-ups to make sure to include some people of color in the pictures. Starbucks' efforts have not gone unnoticed. In 2005, Essence magazine named it one of the great places to work for African American women, and Diversity magazine that same year listed Starbucks among the 26 notable companies for diversity. On the ground, at the store level, the diversity strategy seems to work. Starbucks consistently attracts more people of color than other retail outlets. Certainly, actually, more than most independent coffee shops if you actually just do a kind of quick, a kind of quick scan. Many of the Magic Johnson stores, moreover, are also a hit. Before the siren, and it's a siren, actually, not a mermaid in the middle, came to the inner city, the basketball star explained, quote, "We drive anywhere to get a cup of Starbucks, but now we have it in our own communities." And that's why our numbers are so high. You can't even get in the door between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. Magic might have exaggerated a bit, but most of the UCO stores I visited drew steady crowds. So, several days before Christmas in 2005, I went with a reporter to the Starbucks store on 125th Street in the heart of Harlem. Probably none of the Magic Johnson stores opened to more fanfare than this one, in America's most famous African-American neighborhood. Howard Schultz, the CEO of the company, Magic Johnson, showed up for the opening and talked about corporate caring and the economic boost their coffee shops would provide the area, even though the area was already gentrifying. On the day I went, I ordered a grande-sized drip coffee, and so did my companion. We'd planned to stay for a while and check out the scene, but we couldn't find seats. We waited, two white guys with shoulder bags and cloth coats, plastered against the wall near the milk dispensers. Each time someone needed some half and half or a packet of sugar, we slid even tighter into the corner. Then, as the reporter tells it, an African-American man in overalls sitting near the window got up and approached. "There's a chair right here and a chair right there," the man said, pointing to a couple of seats at a round table. "Come on, it's a community thing." We joined an elderly woman who sat for an hour. The whole time we were there, every seat in the store was taken, with neighborhood folks and tourists, many with German accents. Diversity was apparently paying off for Starbucks. But following this trip to Harlem, I started to think about Starbucks and diversity more. As I did, I was having trouble making complete sense of the company's policies. It certainly did do good things when it came to minority suppliers and opening stores with Magic. But was that all? Was there a larger agenda here? I thought about whether diversity had a payoff beyond attracting new markets and new consumers in African American neighborhoods. What, if anything, did upper middle class whites, Starbucks' core audience, get out of these moves? How did race matter to Starbucks? How did Starbucks' diversity moves fit with the larger politics of buying and race in America? As I kept thinking about this, I couldn't get the Harlem store out of my head. This is the dingiest Starbucks I've ever been to, and unfortunately I've been to like 400 stores. While it's by no means typical of the other UCO stores, it had none of the amenities of a Manhattan or Bala Cynwyd store. There were no cushy chairs or leather couches or gas fireplaces, no nooks or crannies for readings or getting together with friends or holding meetings. This was a bland rectangle. The floors were worn out, the tables wobbled, and the baristas didn't even play music. Usually Starbucks stores have a bright, airy feel for certain reasons. The Harlem store designers, however, skipped the signature floor-to-ceiling windows, opting instead for what people in their business would recognize as a defensive architecture of lots of bricks and only tiny openings. Again, while the store wasn't typical, I began to see it primarily as a message-sending device. In this way, the fact that the store was there was more important than the physical space itself. It was, in a sense, an advertisement, perhaps for Harlem, and perhaps for the fact it was gentrifying, itself a contentious and complex issue. But even more, it was a Starbucks self-promotion. Its presence served as a way for Starbucks to communicate what it believed, and what it believed its customers believed about race in America. So the store in Harlem was only partially about Harlem. Symbolically, it served the needs and desires of suburbanites in Westchester and on Long Island. It wasn't just about black urbanites and earning black dollars. It was also about white politics and white dollars.